How's everybody doing tonight? It's great to see everybody. Our first Chalk Talk. Next to Mike Richter, I'm merely Bill Pidto from MSG Network. This is royalty right here. Let's give Mike a warm welcome. You're not very popular in this room tonight, are you?
I'm related to everybody here. This is my family.
Great to see everybody. We're so glad that everyone's gearing up for another season. Fans in the MSG, nothing can be better than what we're about to get going here, of course. You got the preseason tonight. The regular season starts next Wednesday. What are you looking forward to most when you think about this team, when you think about watching this team?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Thanks so much, guys, for coming out. This place is home, and I love to see the Rangers have success, and I love this young team. I think this is a really great quality team. To me, it was the most exciting team. I'm a homer, so, take it for what it's worth, but I think it's one of the most exciting teams in the game. And I know there's been disruption, everything else with the coaching change. This is part of the evolution, and it's an unfortunate part of the game, but it is. And they've got a great coach in there now. We need these kids to get experience, and that's the only thing they're lacking. And so you don't want to raise expectations unrealistically, but at the same time, you're looking at really great talent. You just, we had a great player in Hank take his retirement, and now you come in with Shesterkin, and Georgie's been great for him. That's not an easy thing to do. So what am I looking for? I just want the games to get going. These kids start to get experience and just take the lumps, take the wins, take the losses, and continue to evolve as an organization.
Talking about the young goalies, where would you assess Igor Shesterkin right now in his development?
You talk about all great players, and someone described, in my era next to me throughout my entire career was Brian Leach. He's an amazing player. He was a great athlete. He threw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball in high school. This is a guy who could play many, many sports. He didn't look it. He didn't intimidate anybody when he first came to the Rangers. But this guy really knew how to play the games, and he never really got hurt, stronger than he looked. But his kind of secret sauce was his ability to read the play. And Wayne Gretzky's, and you see these guys all the time, they kind of have a knack, Drury was like that when he played. He was always in the right place at the right time. He wasn't so physically overwhelming that he was just going to bowl people over. And Shesterkin, Brian was kind of described as the Wayne Gretzky of defensemen. And that's not a fair comparison. You don't want to be comparing anybody to Wayne, but the point was the guy reads the play. He's very, very smart. And
you can't teach that, right, Mike?
It's hard to. You can improve it, but he was born with this kind of gift, I think. His father tells a quick story. He said that, when he was first watching him, his father was a heck of a player when he was younger, played at BC, was almost made the Olympic team in '60. He said he's watching his son. You don't know what you have, of course, and I'm a dad now, and you don't know what your boy's going to do or girl as they grow up and they start to show promise in one area and not others. And he said there'd always be a scrum around the puck when these little guys were playing, and Brian was sitting back. He's kind of going like, geez, kid, get involved. And sure enough, the puck would score it out, and Brian would go down the other end. He said, I started correcting him in the beginning, and then I realized he's actually seen the play better than I am, and I'm going to stop talking to him now and let him do his thing. I would say Shesterkin has that same kind of vision and understanding of the game. You're reading it. Glenn Healy, that I played with, was really good. He's like, well, this guy's coming down. He's on his off wing. He's only got two options here. And I was thinking, yeah, sure, Glenn.
So you played more instinctual than he?
No, as you age, you do definitely read the puck. Different plays. What the possibilities are, different players you play against, what their tendencies are. All those things come into play. But I think Shesterkin is starting at well ahead of the average bear at his age, understanding how to read the play. And I tell you, Valaket was saying that it's off the charts, his ability to read a play, and that's a huge thing because you get better as you age. But if you're starting at that level, sky's the limit.
How about the level of Adam Fox as a young player? You're talking about Brian Leach. When you watch Adam Fox at this young age, already a Norris winner, what do you see?
It amazes me. I know college coaches that said, I liked him and I didn't think he was great, and then we played him. And you look at the score sheet and he figured in every goal. And there are stories like that. The more that I learned about him as a younger kid, the same type of thing, like a Brian Leach, where, he came in and wasn't physically imposing, and he's got a bit of a reputation for being a good player. And he didn't do anything for 2 periods and then had, the game tire and the game winner. And this guy, what they're asking defensemen to do now is so difficult. Goalies do the same thing. They save the puck. Score or score. The game's hard, and we'll talk about that. I'm sure we talked before this about, just how the game's evolved. But I think for the position of defense, so bloody hard. I play a very poor version of it in men's league right now, but there is a decision to make no matter what level you play, and that is, do I pinch here? Do I try to score a goal? Because all I'm doing is put myself.
Wait, hold on. You're playing in a men's league these days? We bearing the lead here or what? What's your goals against average in the men's league?
Oh, no. It's plus minus. I'm a defenseman. I realized when I started getting back into it, it's like, I'm going to get lit up by a high school guy, and it's not going to feel good. So I better play a different position. But you're putting yourself at risk to go and add the offense that's demanded of almost every defenseman now.
Okay, but you're talking about Brian Leetch. So you're saying the expectations offensively for Brian Leetch back in his day compared to Adam Fox now is a big difference?
I think it just continues to be more. Everybody wants a mobile defenseman. You look at Hughes, like when he was drafted, like this is a prototype defenseman. He may not beat you up, but he is going to jump into play. He's going to set up the power play. He's going to add to offense. And so, this is your second to last line of defense before the goalie. And Brian was a wizard at this. I remember in the finals against Vancouver, he went down and hit the goalpost and was the first guy back. Like, how do you lead a rush on offense and somehow swing around and you're the guy back on the 2-on-1? I was like, are there 2 of these guys out here? It was something to watch. And Fox has that. He knows where to jump. And Brian had said about, watch him early on. You just don't get the puck and rush it up the ice, no matter if you're Paul Coffey had to figure out when he goes and when he doesn't go. And that's a read, and that's a tough read. But you get it wrong, and it's not just like, wow, you're a little tired or you're back. You may have cost your team a goal. So there's heavy responsibility, and he seems to really have this down.
One of the things, Mike, is going to be the development of the young forwards. Alexei Lafreniere, Kaapo Kakko, Hedl. What do you see from these guys, and where do you see them headed?
I love Kakko. I think the guy's great. I mean, I'm a big fan of, the whole system in Sweden and Finland on how they get these kids ready to play, and they're big, strong guys. And
now, how would you say it's different overseas as compared to here?
There's just the development and the skill level. We went over as junior national teams. Again, I was with Leachy, and, we were 17, 18 years old, and we're watching these guys just going, they're doing things with the puck that, we don't do for 5 years. They were just so highly skilled. Now, there's a different style in North America. There's a lot more hitting, and certainly the speed is there both ways. But you have a bit of a hybrid all over the world now. There's no real secrets, as we were talking about before. The Russian players come ready to play, and a lot of these guys are very physical. So it's not this real kind of totally different place on one side of the pond than the other. Everybody knows how to play an NHL-style game, and it's whether you can weather that. But, Lafreniere, I mean, you're not just drafting good talent. You have to. If you're taking a first-round pick now, you better get some good talent because there's some good players out there, and you don't want to miss that. But you want to get character, too. And that's the single thing that's the hardest to do. Because in that locker room, you'll always be challenged. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be losses. There's going to be coaching changes. There's going to be just rough times. And what do you do with that? Everybody's great when you're winning. What do you do when you run into the rough patch? And it's, 82 games in a year before the playoffs start, lots of rough patches. So I love the character they have. I mean, this kid was a captain of the junior national team in Canada. That says something. He's a real deal.
When you talk about character, was that some of the motivation for some of the off-season acquisitions like Ryan Reeves, some of the other, quote, tough guys that the Rangers acquired?
Well, it's funny because the game, if you think back in the 70s and the 80s and there's so much toughness, the game still has a ton of toughness. It's just demanding that toughness comes in a package that has skill and can skate. The Dave Schultz of the world are not there. You don't have a fourth-line player that does nothing but fight. You have to contribute. And, I mean, we all saw Wilson, a year ago, like, everybody loves to hate him, right? Yeah, but the guy can also score, and he can also pass, and he can also hit, and he can also fight. That's a rare package. And so you get a guy like Reeves that can kind of do everything. I watched him a couple shifts playing for Vegas. He was unstoppable. Physically really big, fearless, but knows the game and has skill. So, yeah, I think it changes. It's not just character there. It's also just physical strength. And St. Louis won it a couple years ago. They didn't just do it with skill. They were a punishing team. And as you go through those rounds, it wears other teams down. Adam Graves used to say you almost need two teams. You need one that is skilled and can get through the regular season and just outscores your opponent. And then you need a grinding, hard, disciplined, experienced, heavy team in the playoffs. And they had both. And now the Rangers are getting there.
All right, let's open it up to questions. If you can just give everyone your name and where you're from, that'd be great. And if any of the little guys, any of the young fans out there want to get involved, you're more than welcome. So let's open it up. Go ahead. Steve DeMayo from Brewster, right off of 684, right? Yeah, there you go. Best teammate, Mike. Best teammate.
I should tell you, best teammate, that is a stumper. I think we won because we had so many best teammates in the locker room. Brian Leach was my great friend. We sat next to him all the time, grew up with him. You know, we imagined what it would be like to win together. We won together. We played, you know, throughout our career here. So it's hard to say, you know, with all that experience, you know each other well. I mean, we came as kids and grew up to be retired old guys together. Mark Messier, you know, Adam Graves, Zubov, Sergei Nemchinov, just Eddie O. Go down the lineup of that championship team, and you're going to find guys, Glennie Healy. I mean, I sat next to him, you know, in the locker room every day, good times and bad. These are guys that got you through. We were so tight. I mean, it was very much like a family. I mean, they knew when, you know, my dog was sick. We knew everything about each other and lived it quite tightly. So, you know, probably Brian, just because I had so many years and experiences with him on the national teams, on the junior national teams, on the Olympic teams, with the Rangers. But you throw a dart in that locker room, you're hitting character and friends.
The chemistry that you guys had on the championship team, is that something that just evolves? I mean, you played on a number of teams. I'm sure some teams got along better than others. How can a team in the room create the chemistry that's necessary?
I think you have to have a kind of critical mass of character. And, you know, if you think about where that team came from, it didn't just poof come together. It doesn't mean you're going to be great with a couple character guys. But, you know, we traded some really good players and some great guys for Adam Graves. And here's a guy who didn't score a goal for maybe 2 months when he came to the Rangers. And he had one of the highest, back then it was, what was he, a Class 2 free agent. A lot of good players left this locker room to get that one guy here. He had a lot of pressure on him, and people were saying, oh, he's the next Rick Tocchet, he's the next this or that, he's going to be great. And he comes and doesn't score a goal for like a month or so. What did he do with that? All he did was work hard every day. After practice, shooting pucks, 100 pucks at a time from the goal line, try to backhand and do it. You couldn't dislike the guy if you wanted to. And everybody was just supportive. Oh, what about Adam Graves? He hasn't scored. Great guy, working, he does other things away from the puck. 2 years later, the guy's 54 goals or whatever it is. It was going to happen. He had character. He was contributing in ways inside the locker room, outside the locker room. That's the foundation of a good team. When you have a guy like that there, you can't screw off. You can't just waltz in there and be a half-baked professional. You have a guy turning himself inside out every day to just help the team out. And nicest guy in the world, but if you looked at Messier or Leach the wrong way, he'd break you in half. And I can remember him taking on Rob Ray or someone like that. It's just like, that's it. They're screwing around with our skilled guys. We're done. And he would go out there and, not an easy task, but he was a beast when he wanted to be. So I just feel like you get a couple of those guys in the locker room, and now you have peer pressure. You can't not aspire to be that when you're around it. And these guys are not going to waver on what they demand of themselves. And the guys in the locker room, Mess, Bukaboom, these guys weren't lucky to win. They kind of demanded, figured it out. We populated that locker room very purposefully with great players, great experience, and great character.
Other questions? A lot of questions. Go ahead. Go ahead. A lot of pressure to pick up the person, right?
What is your favorite save?
My favorite save?
Yes.
One of the ones from the men's league, right?
Yeah. It's easy to do when you're young enough talent. Try being an old guy. Man, I don't know. Obviously the save of Pavel Bury's celebrated one. It was a big moment. I loved it. It was fun. But there's some saves where only you know how hard it was to make. Maybe your screen, maybe someone blew snow in your eye. Maybe you just let up a bad one. You had to come back with a really kind of tough save. And it is amazing how, you know, I'm 55 years old. I remember specific saves when I was 13, like, you know, what guys were trying to do. We were playing against the Penguins one time, and it was I don't want to say a nothing game, but it was in the middle of the season, and they had so much firepower. And I can remember there was a scrum, and I don't know where those yogs were kind of purposely landed on me. And, you know, just crap going on in front of the net, boots taking legs out, and bodies flying and everything else. And I can remember being down and kind of being pinned, and I knew that the only way they had was to go up, and I just put my blocker out, and the damn guy hit it. And, you know, stuff like that where you're kind of thinking a little bit. There's plenty of lucky ones that make you look good, but other times there's really hard ones that you knew that if you weren't focused and weren't following the play, you were never going to make it. And they're the ones that I like the most because there was so much preparation for it. It sort of shows your, I don't know, all the work comes.
So you're not going to say the Pavel Bure save? I mean, everybody wants to hear about that one, right?
Yeah, I guess, I do like that one. Because, look, you're in the finals, and back then there weren't shootouts, so you just didn't see as many one-on-one kind of competitions like that. There was so much to that, too. Pav was at the end of a shift. If you ever look at that film, you can see he's kind of dying at the end of a shift, and I think he's hoping to be taken down. Beach was closing the gap on him. I didn't think it was really I didn't think he was in the shooting position, so I was kind of questioning whether that was a penalty shot or not, or just 2 minutes. And, you know, it wasn't open for debate. You know, Terry had made the call, and that was that. But in a way, it's better, because they had a good power play, and we were tired, and they can start running you around and changing momentum, and a minute and a half in the zone, and then they score, you're like, ooh. But, you know, penalty shot, you can save and totally change the complexion of the game. You know, for me, Pav had scored already in that series a few times. He was lighting up the league those few years. He was a really electric player, as we all know. And he had speed, but I think, I guess he was talking to the ref. I think he was just trying to buy time because he was tired. He had a ton of pressure on him. You know, it's a home team guy, and he's expected to score. And one of the things, like a Lemieux or a Bure, that allows him to score so much, and I would say Panarin too, is that, you know, they're greatest goal scorers. That's not a surprise. But they just jump at you in the middle of the game. You know, a guy like Lemieux had this incredible reach, so it looked like the pass was way away, and he'd catch this thing, and all of a sudden he'd take big strides, and he was on you. You were prepared. So on a penalty shot, tweet, whistle blows, all right, Mike, no matter crease until you touch the puck. Like, it's set up. Maybe you get a little bit of advantage, because you're not surprised. You know the guy's right in the center, and you know it's coming. Partially, you know, in games when you're not reading the play, that's when people surprise you. Oh, God, they didn't see Bill there. He's on his off wing. He got that shot up there.
I got a heck of a slap shot, I'm telling you.
Frankly, it's why I changed to defense. But at least I knew he was coming. So I was a good skater, and I could imagine Steve coming back, and in a way suck him into trying to make that backhand move. But the guy was a goal scoring machine at the time, and I got him on that one. There's lots of pictures of it, so you know, you don't talk about the times that he scored them even in that series.
Other questions? How about a little guy right here? What's your name? Where are you from?
Nice.
Come on, buddy.
Here you go.
What was your favorite fight?
My favorite fight? All the ones I didn't get in and get my guitar knocked out of me. You know, you feel pretty tough when you have Jeff Boom around. And like, you want a piece of that? Him? Or this guy? In fourth grade, I got in one, and I did pretty well. And I figured I better quit while I was ahead. Everybody kept growing, and I stayed the same size. On the ice, though, you know, it's not. What am I going to do? I'm not going to intimidate anybody at, you know, just 5'10". My hockey card said 5'11", so maybe that's a little more scary. But the reality is, you have big guys that do that, but you do have to battle for your position, and you got to let people know they can't take advantage of you. Joe Kosher's not going to hop off the bench and beat up everybody that ever looks the wrong way. You got to stick up for yourself sometimes, and sometimes that helps the team. And there's different positions and moments on the ice where, you know, I remember early in my career there was a 5-on-5 fight that became a 6-on-5 fight because their goalie jumped in, and the guy he had was Brian Leach, and you know our bench was kind of half asleep, and Brian Leach is getting manhandled by, get in there, Richter, and you're like, well, okay, I just did. Guess I got to do this, and you know it was Sean Burke on the other side, who was a big boy, and yeah, you got to show up. So my favorite fight, I guess, there's a funny story about that one. I ran down the ice and got him off of Leachy. I actually pulled the shirt over him. I felt great about myself. And I got my blocker on, knowing that he still has his helmet, so I'm not going to break my knuckles. And I got kind of like textbook move here, you know. And the ref, I think we were ahead 4-0. I got a shutout going in the second period. Sean's a great goalie and a good fighter, by the way, and has about a foot on me in reach. And the ref came over and was like, hey guys, cut it out. You go back to your cage. I'm not going to give you, if you guys keep going, you're out of the game. And I'm like, I'm not a big team. I'm not out of the game. I'm like, okay, this is cool. You know, stop, you did you? And then Sean grabbed my face mask and almost takes my neck off. And there's a picture in the New York Times the next day, my head's all twisted. My brother cut it out. I was like, great job. You should have seen it before. I had him. Sure. I didn't get the story that fight. That may be my favorite.
Little guy in the right there. Yeah, Pelham.
Big guy in the Pelham shirt. Big guy.
Big guy. Who do you think is the equivalent of Wayne Gretzky right now?
Great question. I don't know if there's an equivalent. You know, he was so far above his peers. I mean, look at the numbers, you know. Scoring 212 points in a year, 92 goals. I mean, just...
Would he be as good in today's game?
I can't answer that. Brian Leach used to get asked that all the time about Bobby Orr. He said it's a ridiculous question. So it's a ridiculous question. How's that?
Thank you very much.
No, in context.
Good to see you too.
Yeah. No, in the sense that he would have all the benefits of the training now. I mean, you kids in Pelham are probably doing things that we didn't do in the pros 25 years ago, right? I mean, really, there's not a lot of secrets. You have the internet. You have some of the best coaching and miles of research on what makes you a great skater and how to become stronger and what technique is best for hockey, and even by position. So Wayne or Bobby Orr would have the benefit of that. So he'd even be better than he was back then. I think one of the ways you have to look at it is how much better are you than your peers? Because they all have the same training, they all have the same opportunity. And so there may come some kid who's, 20 years from now scores more goals than Wayne Gretzky, but, he has the benefit of all that training 20 years from now. But what's he doing with his peers? And Bobby Orr was like that, Wayne Gretzky was like that, Ryan Leach was like that. I think it's getting harder and harder to do it, though. I mean, two guys you have to talk about, obviously, I love Panarin, but I mean, the numbers across a career, look at Sid Crosby. I mean, he has delivered, and he's delivered. You can hate him or not, but the man has got 2 cups. He's a marked guy. He's not a big guy, and he makes the team better around him. And, of course, Ovechkin. I mean, this guy he's the only guy, that could even be said to possibly catch Wayne. And I don't know if he can, given the COVID lockdown and all that. He has no games to give away. You don't want him injured. But my God, he just scores goal after goal. So I think those 2 guys are the modern equivalent. But I mean, look at the package that he comes in. Look at the strength of even Sid Crosby. I remember he was drafted. I was talking to one of the writers from the Hockey News. I'm like, I'm hearing a lot about this guy. What's the deal? He said, look, I don't know if he's going to pan out, but he said he's the best Joey Junior that I've ever seen, and I've never seen anybody with a skating ability where he can go into a corner and do a turn and come out faster than they went in. And if you ever watch this dude turn, it's art. It's like he never even slows down. It's like a skier. To handle those G-forces, you have to be very, very strong. He is. So, and by the way, both of them are amazing ambassadors to the game after all they've done. So, I'm a big fan of both of them.
Right now, you yell at Kane.
What's your name? Where are you from? Joe from Brooklyn.
Messier.
And you mentioned Mark Messier and how good of a captain. Can you talk about the importance of having a captain in the locker room and who you think might be a good fit for this year's team?
Yeah, look, when you're talking about great attributes, you probably can never have enough of them, but you can't have too much character. It's not like, we're full of that. We don't want this guy who's a great character. We're getting Adam Graves' brother, get rid of him, his twin brother. No, we don't want that in the locker room. No, you can't get enough. And Mark was so good at that and, demanding in a way. Like he somehow straddled that. Look, the captain's supposed to be the liaison between the coach and the players. He knows how the players are feeling, he knows what the coach is demanding, and he kind of meets you halfway. Mark was just supreme at this. He could read the players. He knew, everybody's very different. Different personalities can still be incredibly successful. You can be an introvert, you can be an extrovert, you can be a funny guy, you can be a grumpy guy, big, small, whatever. something makes you tick, but when you get to the rink, you got to contribute to the team. And he was phenomenal about that. You know, people have trouble at home. We're all humans. Someone has a drinking issue, he'll bring it to, you know, we won't embarrass him. Let's see how we can get you healthy and then, you know, get you back and contributing. Like this guy, I had friends that I went to college with who was like, what's this Messier? I'm so tired of hearing Mark Messier, he's a god and all this kind of, it's all hype, huh? I'm like, no, it's just flat out real. Like, you know, think of the career that a guy like Amante had, and you know, these are guys that were in the Rangers locker room for a brief period of time with Mark, learned a ton and went on to do great things. Thinking of Dougie Waite, you know, I think the first month Mark was there, he's like, Dougie, what are you doing now? Oh, I'm going to catch some food at the hook. Come with me. My mom's over, you know, stay with me. They go out and have a few beers. They get up the next morning, his mom makes him breakfast. He's doing it to be friendly. He's also doing it to have this guy say, man, you're welcomed, you're part of the team, you're an important part of the organization, here's how to be a pro. You know, he was a guy that, you know, there's great wild stories about him as a younger guy, but he also learned how to be a pro, pick your spots. Just everything you do has to be contributing to that goal, or else you take it away. And he lived that. You know, he wasn't always like that, but he had a great capacity to understand and learn, and he'd love to get to know guys. He'd have them over for dinner. And so I think that's the type of thing that if you have even a tenth of that, you're ahead of most teams. And he just had it in spades. The other guys that came from Edmonton had that. You know, we brought on Marmer and guys like Eddie Olchuk that had so much character. I mean, those dudes mesh so well. So yeah, I think that's the single most important thing. And he had it in spades, unlike anybody I've ever been around. And we all learned from him.
All right, time for one more. Who's it going to be? How about you, little guy in the front there? What's your name? Where are you from?
James Valuch, and I'm from Aviator. And this is a question from my whole team. Who was your role model growing up?
Great question. Look, you know, we're all fans, right? We were kids. We didn't know whether you were going to make the NHL. We didn't know whether you were going to make your high school team. And we loved playing and just, you know, aspired to do these things. So you're always looking at people that you kind of admired. I grew up in Philadelphia, so I knew of Eddie Jockman. I knew how great he was. At first, I kind of didn't like him because he was standing in the way of the Flyers' success. But I loved how he played, and secretly really loved the Rangers jersey, but couldn't say that in Philadelphia where it's all orange. I would have gotten in another fight after fourth grade. Bernie Perrant was a goalie in Philadelphia, right? And he, in the Hall of Fame, really cool French-Canadian guy, white hair now, drove a boat off Atlantic City, just a really cool guy. Won both of his championship games with a shutout, but he was an outstanding, dominant player of his time, and you know, easy guy to look up to. Goalies played very different back then, very, you know, kind of played the angles, and he was no bigger than I was, so it helped me model my game a lot to say, what does he do well, and what can I learn from him? And my gosh, I went to his Bernie Perrant hockey school when I was younger, and all that. And he was always a champion of other kids. You know, some fat little kid in Philadelphia that's emulating him. Good, go get him. Go to the pros. You know, what does he know? But always had time for people. Was a great player and played his best when his team needed it most in his championship games. So, yeah, he was definitely my idol. But I think it's part of the fun of sports, all sports, but hockey in particular, such a rich history. And I used to collect pictures of all kinds of goalies. You know, stick them on my wall and, you know, see what equipment they had and all that. It's an amazing sport. But follow the great guys is probably a smart blueprint to see what you can do. And you guys know how Shesterkin, as a goaltender, you have Panarin. I mean, you have some players right here in this town that are phenomenal to watch, and we're all fans still. So let's go do it.
Fantastic stuff, Mike. Let's give it up for Mike Richter. How great was that? Thank you all for coming. Let's go Rangers. Be well, everybody. We'll see you soon. Mike Richter, fantastic.